The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hi everyone, on this week's episode of Hashtag No Filter, we are talking about teens, PR, and how you can build your very own brand image. Can you come closer to me? I won't see you. Oh. I'm Ruchika Bindra, and thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Hashtag No Filter. We are talking about PR, teens, branding, and what that actually means. I'd like to introduce our guest panelist today. I'm very excited to have her on. One of the top PR firms in Canada, we have Meg Sethi from Evolution PR. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're so excited to chat with you, all things related to PR and whatever that means. We also have our guest teen panelists with us. We have Nitka, Viren, and Matthew. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Okay, so don't make fun of me, but what is PR?
I mean, public relations is a lot of things. So first of all, PR stands for public relations,
Okay, good
which
to
some
know.
people don't even really realize.
Right.
I mean, really, what it is, it's the relationship between people, brands, and the media. So, I mean, sometimes when people open newspapers or they see people talking about things, they don't know that there's a huge PR effort that's gone behind that. So what it is it's people like myself and my team who think about what would media like, what would the public like, and how can we talk to them about this brand through the newspapers and the television and all that.
So there's a difference between that and talent agencies and talent managements, right? Because I feel like a lot of people get confused between the difference between the two.
They do. Okay. I mean, so I think it would even start as far back as the manager. So, you know, when someone is a singer, for example, I'm a big fan of Alicia Cara. I adore her. I think she's so talented.
She's phenomenal, yeah.
So she has a manager. So what he or she really does is they're the CEO of her brand. So their job is to make sure that everybody else is doing their job. And one of those people who's supposed to be doing their job is the publicist. And their job is really to make sure that, you know, for example, if she has a show in a certain town, to make sure that the media knows about it, that they're writing about it, and that they're writing about it in the right way. So really they're managing that relationship and that coverage and just making sure, again, that it's all in line with what her team wants.
Okay, so then my question to you is PR only for like teens if they're going to get into the entertainment industry? Because I've seen a big shift in the last 5 years. Now, you know, you hear more about teen branding with Kylie Jenner and Selena Gomez and all these, you know, celebrity sensations, and everyone talks about their PR initiatives and efforts. So is it only limited to the entertainment industry?
Not at all.
Okay.
I mean, brands for about, I would say, at least 100 years have really used PR and PR strategies to get out to people. So I think all we're seeing more is that there's so many talented teens out there now, and they just want to do big things, and now they have the opportunity to do that. So now there's just more of a conversation about teen branding and teen PR, but it has actually existed for lots of years.
Before.
Yeah.
Okay. So Viren, I know that you're somebody who likes photography, and you always think about how you could position yourself. So for someone like you, have you ever thought about how would you be able to position yourself in this industry, in the world of like media and photography?
Yeah, it's, you know, it's really hard to, you know, try to get yourself out there. It's to get noticed. So I guess the way that you post yourself and the way that you represent yourself to everyone, and how you want everyone to see you is really important. And the way that the media sees you and how you interact with them and how you know, comment with other people, and when they you know,
relate with you, I guess,
when they
and
relate
form
with
that
you,
relationship and brand. So how hard is it for someone who wants to start out? Let's say someone's like, okay, I'm a singer, I'm 17, you know, I want to start out, I have a great talent firm behind me. How do I get into PR? How do I get people in Canada, for example, to know me? How would that work?
So it's a lot of work behind it. And I think it's one of those, unfortunately, it's one of those industries that people don't see all the work that goes behind it. There's a really famous quote that was out in Elle magazine, I believe it was, that said, for every hour of glamour that you see, there's at least 24 hours of hard work that's behind it.
I think that's a phenomenal quote.
And it's so dead true. So like even like segments, when we have clients that we're working with, I mean, they take hours and hours and hours of work. So I think that if someone really wants to get out there, the first thing I would recommend is sitting down and thinking about what makes them different, what makes you stand out. Why is the media and the public going to be interested in you in particular? And everybody has something special about themselves. It's just tapping into that and then figuring out what's the best way to get out there.
And what has been one of your most, when you started out, I guess, in PR and working with artists and working with brands, did you ever work with a teen? Did you ever work with like a really young talent?
We have actually.
Okay.
Right now we're working with a lovely author who wrote a book, and she's actually a teen.
Okay.
And the book is called Not Your Average Teen.
Okay.
And then we've also worked with a really well-known artist who is from Brampton, and she worked herself to the bone for all through her teens, and she actually ended up signing with a really, really well-known artist out in Atlanta. And that
Amazing.
took, 10 years of work. Like now she's kind of in her early 20s, but she's still working every day to make sure she's
So you have to start from young, and you can.
I mean, it depends on the industry,
Okay.
right? I think for music, for example, it helps to start at a young age, and I think we're seeing more and more of that. But I think you can also start in your 30s, or you can even start in your 40s. I don't think there's a limitation on age.
And I have a question for you. Somebody tweeted this to us for this episode. A lot of teens are wondering, what if they want to get into sort of an industry like engineering or business and finance, and they say that everything is becoming so competitive, right? It's not just entertainment. If I want to enter even the finance world, there's everybody that's trying to vie for the same top positions at the top banks. How can you position yourself PR-wise in an industry like that too?
Definitely. Again, it's the same strategy, and just finding out why you would stand out and what makes you different. And then thinking of a really creative way to get someone's attention.
Okay.
I think in this day and age, there's just so much information that's out there. We're constantly inundated with information, so we want to get our interest piqued. And the best way to do it is to figure out, okay, this is the person who's going to be hiring. What do they like? How can I really interest them and engage them and get them excited? And then making sure you do some kind of a PR strategy for yourself around that.
Also, if you put a lot of attention in yourself and what you're doing, that could also be seen in a bad way. If you put too much attention, or
Definitely.
if the spotlight's on you and you do something, a bit like iffy, if it's the right thing to do or not, and then you get yourself in a light that's not maybe seen positively.
Definitely. I mean, that's where it's important to understand the strategies behind PR. Like, it's not cookie cutter for every single person. So, for example, if you are applying for a job that's in some of these industries, you're completely right. You want to make sure that you're not looking like you're trying to be a celebrity, because they're going to be like, that doesn't really make sense to me. It's really important to understand what that person is looking for, and then to really adapt yourself accordingly.
And I guess that's where we need a PR person to come and help us brand kind of where we're going and what we're doing with it, right?
Definitely.
And how long have you been in this industry for?
So this firm that I started we're going into our fifth year anniversary,
Oh my
actually, which
God,
is exciting.
Big five, yeah.
But I've been, working in this industry for, 8.5 years.
Oh
so
my
not to give
God.
away my age, but yeah,
Okay,
it's been
very
quite a while.
cool. And is this something you studied when you were all throughout high school and graduation?
Yes and no. I
Okay.
mean, I always kind of did PR jobs and didn't realize through my volunteer work
Right.
or my extracurricular activities, but I didn't really know at the time that you could actually have a job doing some of these things.
And now?
And now it's kind of become more popular. Back in the day it wasn't as much. So, I did economics and political science
Very
more
cool.
than anything.
All right, everybody. On the other side of the break, we're going to talk about celebrities and what bad PR actually means. Hi everyone, I'm Ritika Bindra. Welcome back on #NoFilter. We are talking about PR branding with the president of Evolution PR, Meg Sethi. Okay, Meg, my favorite question for you. What is bad PR, and what does it mean when we look on social media and we have all these celebrities that seem to have kind of these strategic positionings going on? Like I'll see a Selena Gomez at a certain event, and then I'll see her wearing a certain dress, and then the next day that dress is everywhere. And then there's bad PR because she came out of the limo and she didn't wave. So is every move planned?
I think yes and no.
Okay.
So there's a lot of stuff that is planned, but when you're doing entertainment PR, for example, I mean, things are going to happen. There's people involved and things happen, and sometimes, she's on the phone or she doesn't realize, and she doesn't know how the public is going to see that.
Okay.
So there can be bad PR. I mean, there's been lots of examples of things in the media that are not too great. I mean, I think a lot of looking at things like Justin Bieber is a big conversation right now just because of the Junos. I mean, he had some bad PR when he was kind of doing some crazy things out in Miami.
Yeah.
So that was not the best PR that I have ever seen.
Okay.
And again, it doesn't mean it's the publicist. Sometimes it's just like the client is going through something, or something has happened, or something of that nature. So I would say there is definitely some major examples of bad PR.
And is it true, all PR is, like they say, as long as you're in the news, it's good news. Is that true or no?
Because that's only true for entertainment.
Okay.
Yes.
So even in entertainment, if it's bad PR, it's good because you're kind of, I guess, in the eye?
Yes and no. Like, again, that was kind of back in the day before we had all this digital, like, opportunities, right? So back in the day, you just wanted people to talk about your client. Now you want them to talk about your client, but you still want them to love your client. Because if they don't, then they're not going to buy this, like, the music, and then they're not going to be engaged. And if they're not engaged, then, you know, the brand ends up kind of failing, right? So you want to make sure all that's done.
Yeah, does, like, ethics come into hand with this? So, like, if someone's not ethical, like who'd say, like, if the Kardashians aren't ethical, then they're not going to go and buy their products. Does it go in hand? Or?
I think so. I mean, I think what's really great about, you know, all the social media now is that we're really smarter with how we're consuming things. So we're not just going to buy into someone's image. We want to make sure that they really are practicing what they preach. And I think that because of that, things like social media are allowing us to connect with people and say, hey, like, this isn't great. So with an example like the Kardashians, if they were not ethical, I think there would be a lot of people that would hold them accountable for that in a very public way.
Right. I mean, and I think they still are, right? Like, there was, I think, the whole lip thing with Kylie Jenner, and we spoke about this on one of our other episodes, and she did this sort of lip challenge, and girls all over went crazy on social media and Twitter and Instagram, you know, trying to do something with their lips to make it look bigger. So is something like that, like, probably strategically planned, or is that something we can say is just her on her own, kind of, you know, the client doing what the client wants?
I mean, that one could have gone either way. Like, that could have been a publicity stunt gone wrong. Like, that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't think that people expected, you know, girls to suddenly start to try, like, suction things and all that with cups and didn't realize the ramifications. But on the other side of it, I think that really is an indicator of how powerful social media and PR really is right now.
And do you think PR has become easier to kind of deal with now with digital and social, or do you think it's more challenging because everybody's jumping on the same bandwagon?
I think that depends on who you ask. I think from a publicist perspective, it's definitely harder because we're suddenly now managing, before we were managing just the media, right? So, you know, you would get a call from a reporter, you would be dealing with newspapers that you'd want to work with. But now if someone, you know, gets on and just starts to tweet something a little crazy, there's so many ramifications of that, and that's a mess you have to clean up as a publicist.
Yeah, and also, like, if you're, like, back in the day when they didn't have social media, you could do something and it would take, you know, 12, 24 hours to come across, and you'd have time to, like, think, what am I going to do now to solve the issue? But now, like, if you're going to say a tweet or you feel something and you take your phone out and you type something, it's 5 seconds and it's posted, and then everyone sees it, and then you have 5 seconds to, you know, figure out how you're going to deal with the situation instead of, like, the entire day when it had to go out on a news article or something like that.
And that's actually with news as well. News has also become 24 hours. I mean, I had a client once call us, there was an emergency situation at midnight on a Sunday, and then right at that moment I had to deal with the situation. I had to send out a statement in the next hour, and then I was at that office by 6 a.m. the next day solving the issue.
I mean,
Like crisis management, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I'm very careful with what I put on, like, social media and everything. And, like, my parents, my teachers always tell me, like, be careful what you put on, because, like, in the future, if you want to get employed, like, they're going to look at that and they're going to, like, search all your history and everything, and they're going to compare someone that has, like, a clear slate and someone that does whatever they want on social media, and they're obviously going to choose the person that has a clear slate. So
Definitely.
Do you, as somebody in the PR industry, if you have teens coming to you and they want to kind of build their image, do you almost tell them, okay, this is how you need to be, this is what you need to post? Like, where's the freedom? Because at the end of the day, when we're dealing with young millennials and we're dealing with teens, it's also a group that's always going to explore and they're always going to go through phases. So are they almost going to limit themselves if they start a little bit young?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, unfortunately and fortunately, like, the great thing about social media, of course, we know all the great things about it. You can connect to people, you can talk to brands, all this great stuff. But the negative side of it is, when you're a teen, you're still learning a lot about yourself, right? So you sometimes want to post something and you might not realize that there will be long-term ramifications. So what I always say is, whatever you're comfortable with anybody knowing about, post. If you don't want your grandma to see it, you don't want your friends to see it, you don't want your future, employer to see it, just don't post it. You can always still share that information with your friends. You can send them a text or whatnot, right? There's still other opportunities. I just wouldn't put it in a public space.
Now, I do have a question for you. So like you said, Justin Bieber, he had a rough time, and he did go through a bad slate. The media was, hounding him about it. So, like, what is a good method to, bounce back from that and get all your fans back and get them to give that respect to you?
I mean, I think the roast was the best example I have seen.
Agree.
I mean, that was really someone who had been classified and branded as really kind of like a little bit of a punk. And that was the word that everybody used. They're like, oh, he's like a spoiled brat now. He got all this fame and now he's acting crazy. But I mean, by him sitting down and allowing all these people to really roast him, really showed a sense of humility that people hadn't seen before. And then I even think, I know for me, when I watched the car karaoke that he did, I was like so sold on him, because he sat there and they asked him, like, what would you like to change about yourself in the next 5 years? And he was like, I just want to be more confident in myself. And I was like, this is something we can all relate to. So it kind of brought him back to being a normal human instead of just this like whole image of Justin Bieber. And I think that was really, really a smart move.
And hey, look, now we're still talking about him now. So
Exactly.
he's not doing a bad job.
Exactly.
So I guess that's a part of PR we call crisis management, right? Where we sometimes try to sort of rework something that's done or change the damage that's done. Do you find you do that a lot? Like,
I do, yes.
are you like, oh no, here we go, crisis management mode?
I mean, yes and no. I think, like, for me, I'm really closely involved with everybody we work with. I love what I do. So, I mean, when there's a bad situation, I just want to fix it for our client. I want to make it easier for them. I want their life to be easier. And sometimes mistakes happen. So my job is to make sure I can come in and fix that for them. So I always am committed to doing that. But yes, it can get a little crazy.
Okay, perfect. On the other side of the break, we are going to be talking about how you can actually build your brand from the beginning. Meg, if you can think of about 5 easy tips we can do to start off, especially for our teens in different industries, what are the 5 core basics they should have? And we're also going to look at one example of a PR case gone really good and gone really bad. Stay tuned, everyone. Hi everyone, welcome back and thank you for watching #NoFilter with me, Ruchika Bindra. So Meg, 5 starter points, I guess I would say, for teens that want to slowly work towards eventually developing their brand.
So number 1, figure out what you like. I mean, I think that one of the greatest things I've learned in my life is things that I loved and was interested in as a teen ended up being things that I was interested in as an adult. They might have just evolved a little bit. So I think figuring out what you like is number 1. I think then understanding who are kind of those key influencers in that kind of space. So for example, in music, if you love music, figure out who are those music writers that are going to be writing about things that you like or the type of music that you like. 3, get online, make sure you're commenting on some of these great things that people are putting out, letting them know, hey, great article, question about A, question about B. Number 4, I would say, make sure you're starting to build your own brand, get on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and, all the great things that are out there right now. And then I would say the last one, even I would start to vlog. I think vlogging is becoming really popular. And I think even if you're creating your own little commentary on a show that you love or a musician that you love, that's a great way to get attention and just to get comfortable in front of a camera too.
And also with kind of social media, as you said, when we're starting all these initiatives of building our own brand, how do you kind of stay away from getting lost in the mix? Because, like now everybody's a do-it-yourself makeup artist, or everybody's kind of, going to start posting their own idea of being in music. So where do you kind of, I guess, tweak the fine line between when it's too much and when it's actually working towards contributing towards a space that's going to generate exposure?
I mean, I think it's really understanding what your end goal is. So like if you're creating all this content for yourself and you're PRing yourself, what is your end goal? So once you understand what your end goal is, then you can start to create content that'll kind of cater to that end goal. So when we start working with a brand, for example, our first question, so say there's a makeup brand that comes to us, our first question is, what's your business development plan? i.e., do you want to be in stores? Do you want to be in gifting lounges? Do you want to connect with celebrities? What's your plan with that? And then all your PR should support that. So it's the same thing for your own personal brand. Maybe I want to become a musician. So what do I want to do that? I want to start to play. I want to start vlogging myself playing. I want to try to get a talent agent. And then your PR team should really help you by supporting your goals by getting there through their PR initiatives.
Have you guys ever considered or ever thought about it? Like, oh, okay, you see all these young teens and, you're so active on social media and they have all these kind of PR initiatives behind them. Have you guys ever thought about your own personal self and how you would develop your brand?
Well, I mean, I'm not famous, so I got to do it all myself.
Yeah.
So I got to do all that stuff, all those jobs myself, and make sure what I'm doing sort of represents me well and represents what I stand for, and nothing too controversial that will bring up something that like might come back to backfire me in a job or in anything like that, where they'll look at my social media and say, oh, why did he do that? That was definitely a mistake and I can't take it back.
But I think still being unique to yourself is important. I feel like a lot of people always say this, like, I need to be so careful on social media, I need to be so cautious. And I think it's true, but I also think, like, you know, if you're going to brand yourself as someone who's going to be a rocker or whatever, you're going to do a little bit of crazy things. It adds to your brand, right?
Definitely.
So I think it's important that we don't lose who we are. And I'm sure in PR, that's probably something you always tell your clients, don't lose the unique part that's selling you, right? Your unique selling point. Because it's easy to get lost in that.
I actually, I've been thinking about making my own YouTube channel for a couple years. And I think in the next couple of weeks, I'm actually starting it up. And it's, I thought it was just like a great way to just get myself out there, get people to know me, you know, get my point of view on life, and, you know, try to inspire like a couple people, you know, even if I get one person to, like, you know, like what I do and stuff, that's great, you know, one person is like the whole world.
And it's an exposure towards, as she said, if you want to later on maybe take that and, you know, maybe go into journalism or public speaking or motivational speaking, it's a space for you to start, and then you can go to Evolution PR and you can say, okay, now I'm ready to start building my brand, you know?
And I think even with that, it's important to understand the difference between being unique and being careful.
Right.
So, you know, you can be unique and do crazy fun things, but I think what the message I'm trying to share with a lot of teens is, you can do whatever you feel comfortable doing. Just make sure that you know what that end result might be. And make sure that you know that people will watch this at some point. Even if you think it's going to be private, it might not be. So just make sure you're comfortable with that. But by all means, be creative and crazy and fun and have a good time with it. I mean, otherwise there's no point.
And how expensive is PR? Is it a huge initial investment? Like, I know people that want to go into music or talent agents, they're always like, oh my God, my talent agent is so expensive. And I said, well, this is sort of the initial kind of cost you need, you know, the down payment, I always say, to start something. Is that the same for PR for teens that maybe are watching and want to eventually sign with a PR firm?
I think so. I mean, you know, the prices always vary, right? So sometimes you can work with a senior level publicist. That'll mean that they'll be able to do X, Y, and Z. Or sometimes you'll work with a junior publicist. So the prices really vary accordingly. I mean, I think the most important thing is to understand, like, when you go to someone in publicity, make sure you have either a product or a service that you want to sell. So if you want to write a book, for example, make sure that the publicist is aware of that, because then if you're hiring someone to do your publicity and help create all this attention for you, it'd be nice to connect it to something to actually make money for yourself too.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people do. They just like, okay, I want a PR firm, and they don't have sort of that goal, as you said, that direction and sort of the flow of where they're going.
Definitely.
And have you ever rejected somebody? Like, do PR firms say, okay, your image doesn't work with our firm, or kind of all PR is to brand and sell?
No, well, we've definitely said no. I mean, if someone comes to us and they're not really sure with where they want their brand to go, I mean, we're not here to help create your brand, we're here to help elevate your brand,
I
right?
like that.
So we'll create your brand in the sense that, you know, if you're like, I want to be here, we'll say, okay, well, this works and this doesn't as to what you've done. So I would say maybe we tweak a brand more than actually create it. But I mean, someone has come to us before and said, well, I'd like to do all 18 of these things. And I said, you know, well, we can't publicize 18 things about you at once. It just won't work, and it'll muddle the message. So if our approach doesn't gel with them, then it's just about a fit. Then sometimes we refer them to other agencies that we know that might be a better fit.
What do you think is like the best form of, you know, exposing yourself to the world? Like, you know, Instagram or Twitter. Like, what is, you know, if a teen, as a teen, if I'm trying to, you know, express my talent towards something, what do you think is the best way to do that?
I mean, I think it's probably a combination of all of those, but I think it, again, unfortunately, it's not just one answer. It depends on what you're trying to do. So, like, for example, Facebook is really followed still. I know some people think it's a dying space, but if you look at the statistics in Canada, it's still followed by a lot of adults who have a certain net worth, right? So, again, if you want to talk to those people, then you want to employ Facebook, number one, right? But if you want to talk to, if you're a photographer, for example, and you want to show off your great photos, then I would say Instagram's a great place, right? Or like a Flickr, and then, you know, making Instagram like a relationship between the two would be really, really great.
And then
so
hashtags and stuff on it.
exactly.
So basically it'll depend on, I guess, what you're selling, what you're trying to publicize, where your exposure is, and what you need.
Exactly.
So on today's episode of #NoFilter, we spoke about teens PR and the actual effort that goes behind it. We hope you enjoyed this episode, everybody. My name is Richika Bindra, and we'll see you next week on #NoFilter at 6 p.m. on Rogers TV.